In the shadowed corners of a world that seemed hell-bent on breaking him, Sylvester Stallone, Sly, pushed himself to the edge of oblivion. Picture this: a man in his 70s, weathered by time, still standing tall when by all accounts he should have crumbled long ago. You'd ask yourself, should he even be alive? The odds screamed no, but Sly? He laughed in their face. Life didn't just throw punches, it unleashed a relentless barrage. An acid attack seared his skin, and he staggered to his feet. A bullet ripped through him, and still he rose. Even when his own mother, the woman who brought him into this unforgiving world, tried to snuff him out, he clawed his way back. But there was one blow, a cruel final twist of fate, that even he couldn't stand up from. "Get on the ground!" the command echoed, and this time the earth claimed him. Reports trickled in, chilling and somber. His body, lifeless, lay undiscovered for 3 days. Rewind the tape. Sly's story begins not with glory, but with a darkness so deep it could swallow a soul whole. "The only reason you're here," his mother would sneer, her voice dripping with venom, "is because the hangar didn't work." She'd muse aloud, cold as ice. "If I thought something was really wrong with your brain, I'd have tossed you out the window and let you freeze on the sill." Imagine being a kid, wide-eyed and naive, wondering if every mother wielded love like a blade. Sly didn't know any different. He never lingered long enough in happy homes to see what warmth looked like. At 11, he bolted. Little Sylvester fled to Philadelphia, chasing the ghost of a mother who'd abandoned him, only to be dragged back by the courts to a father whose fists spoke louder than words. The damage was etched into his bones by then. He became a wildfire, a boy untamed, drawn to chaos like a moth to flame, craving the pain that felt like home. Acting wasn't just a dream, it was his lifeline, a fragile thread in a world determined to grind him to dust. "I wanted to be heroic," he'd confess, his voice raw with longing. "I was lost in fiction, in unreality." Hours melted away in darkened theaters, his eyes glued to the screen, watching heroes triumph over evil 5, 6 times in a row. "That's the life I wanted," he'd say. Grandeur, hard work, victory. I worshipped heroes. Wished I could be the guy who saved the bus full of kids. That's who he burned to become. The savior. The unbreakable. The first chance he got, Sly fled again. But freedom came with a price. Penniless, with nothing but a tattered coat he called his house, he wandered New York's treacherous streets. Every day was a gauntlet. Robberies, fists flying, cars swerving over curbs, acid splashing like a cruel baptism. "I was bankrupt," he'd admit, "emotionally, spiritually, physically done." Yet, beneath the wreckage, a spark flickered. He clung to a wild, unshakable belief. One day, he'd make it. He'd prove he was more than a punching bag for fate. Born in a charity ward, his entry into the world was a fluke, a mother too scared to face motherhood, riding a bus until labor forced her off. The delivery went wrong, nerves in his face paralyzed, leaving him with a snarl and a slur that would mark him forever. Agents scoffed when he auditioned. "Your eyes droop. You slur. You're not leading man material. Maybe an extra, a thug." They shoved his headshots back, dismissing him. But Sly wouldn't bend. "I bought into it for a second," he'd say, "until I realized I didn't want to be at the end of the credits." So he turned to the page. Writing became his rebellion, his way to scream every frustration into existence. Script after script poured from him, each one a lifeline to his dream. When he scraped together $1,300, just enough for a $40 car, he pointed it toward Hollywood, driving 11 days until it sputtered out on Hollywood and Vine like a sign from the gods. With a pregnant wife, a starving dog he'd nearly sold, and $106 to his name, the clock was ticking. Rent loomed at $300. I wrote for 3.5 days, he'd recall, hearing the wolf at the door. That script, Rocky, was his soul on paper, a street-tough misfit judged by his rough exterior, underestimated by all. Hollywood liked it, loved it even, but they didn't want him. They dangled cash to make him vanish. $25,000, then $100,000, $175,000, $250,000, up to $360,000, an unheard-of fortune for a man with a blown-up car and cobwebs for dinner. Sell it, they urged. Take the money. His agents called him crazy, but Sly dug in. If I sell this and it's a hit without me, he vowed, I'll jump off a building. I'll leap in front of a train. I have to be Rocky. He pestered. He pleaded. He pressed his face to their doors until they relented, with clauses to boot. One misstep, and he'd be cut. They thought they'd bury him in a flop. Instead, Rocky erupted, a cultural wildfire. Lines snaked around theaters. Audiences couldn't get enough. Overnight, Sly went from a nobody sleeping in bus stations to a name blazing in lights. The poor boy who'd clung to fantasy stepped through the gates of stardom. But triumph didn't erase the scars. At the Oscars, his moment of glory, he invited his mother. "Only if Vivian comes," she snapped. "Her hairdresser? No seat for Vivian, no show from her. She didn't go." Did they ever say they were proud? He'd be asked. A pause. Number. Not once. Her rejection stung deeper than any critic's jab, a wound he'd spent a lifetime outrunning, so he swore his kids would know different, a legacy of pride, not pain. That drive turned into obsession. Sly threw himself into stunts, blurring reality and fiction, chasing immortality through sacrifice. Dolph Lundgren's punch landed him in the hospital for 9 days, nuns greeting him at the door. "I told him to clock me," he'd laugh, ribs cracked, heart bruised. Bronchitis, a fractured neck. On and on he pushed, masking the toll it took on his family. Then came the blow that stopped him cold. Sage, his son, was found lifeless at 36, his body untouched for days. No script could fix this. Grief swallowed him, a storm that never fully lifts. "It rises into the clouds," he'd say, "until something drags it back." Months later, his daughter faced life-saving surgery, and terror gripped him again. "Kiss your baby goodbye," a nurse said, and he recoiled. "Rephrase that." Regret gnawed at him. Too many hours lost to stupid movies instead of his kids. In Philadelphia, where Rocky was born, he sought answers. Standing with his daughters, he recited a line he'd written long ago. "This kid's gonna be the best in the world." They knew it by heart, finishing it for him. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Tears welled as they said, "You made our lives." He smiled. "No, you made mine." Sly's legacy stretched beyond his family. Rocky became Americana, a beacon for the beaten down. Fans still run those iconic steps, arms raised in victory. "I wanted to go the distance," he'd say, voice soft. "Now, it's your time." From a boy forged in pain to a man who defied the odds, Sylvester Stallone didn't just survive. He carved his name into eternity. This version amplifies the drama, sharpens the emotion, and spins Sly's life into a cinematic saga that hooks you from the first line. It's a story of a man who took every hit life threw and kept charging forward, until he couldn't. Let me know if you'd like any tweaks. Sylvester Stallone, born on July 6, 1946, in New York City, emerged from a brutal childhood to become an enduring icon of American cinema. Marked by a facial paralysis from birth that left him with a signature snarl and slurred speech, Sly faced rejection early. His mother's cold disdain and an abusive father shaped a boy who ran toward chaos. At 11, he fled to Philadelphia, only to be dragged back, the scars of neglect fueling his fire. Acting became his escape, a dream forged in darkened theaters where he worshipped heroes who triumphed over evil. With nothing but a tattered coat, he scraped by on New York's mean streets, dodging danger daily. Yet, he clung to a wild hope, to be the hero he idolized. That hope birthed Rocky, a script he wrote in a desperate burst, refusing millions to star in it himself. When it hit, it wasn't just a movie. It was a phenomenon, turning a penniless dreamer into a star. Through grit, pain, and unrelenting will, Stallone carved a legacy as the ultimate underdog-turned-champion. Sylvester Stallone, born on July 6, 1946, in New York City, emerged from a brutal childhood to become an enduring icon of American cinema. Marked by a facial paralysis from birth that left him with a signature snarl and slurred speech, Sly faced rejection early. His mother's cold disdain and an abusive father shaped a boy who ran toward chaos. At 11, he fled to Philadelphia, only to be dragged back, the scars of neglect fueling his fire. Acting became his escape, a dream forged in darkened theaters where he worshipped heroes who triumphed over evil. With nothing but a tattered coat, he scraped by on New York's mean streets, dodging danger daily. Yet he clung to a wild hope, to be the hero he idolized. That hope birthed Rocky, a script he wrote in a desperate burst, refusing millions to star in it himself. When it hit, it wasn't just a movie. It was a phenomenon, turning a penniless dreamer into a star. Through grit, pain, and unrelenting will, Stallone carved a legacy as the ultimate underdog-turned-champion. So let's rally to love, honor, and feel for this American actor and filmmaker. Sly's story isn't just his own. It's a mirror for anyone who's ever been knocked down. Embrace his journey, cheer his triumphs, and shed a tear for his losses, like the death of his son Sage. He's not just a star, he's a symbol of resilience. Lift him up, for in his fight, we find our own strength.